All right, we're back working on the Jeep. If you saw last video we did when we made the DIY platform for the rear of the Jeep, we got this all done. Made our nice little access point. Got the fridge mounted and installed, and so now we want to work on the electrical panel area. I think what we're going to do is we're going to put a piece of plywood that stands vertically toward the back seat and mount all the electronics facing the actual seat so it's protected from anything we put in the back. In our previous setup, we used a drop-down piece of plywood that had a model panel on it. And I think we're just going to turn that vertically instead of horizontally and kind of affix it the same way. So I think that's going to be the goal today, and then probably we'll get the shelf installed. All right, this is the panel I was talking about. I think all we're going to do is take this hinge off this board here, and then we're just going to turn it like this and then mount this underneath, trim to flush, and put the hinge right here. So I think that's what we're going to do next. And then all the electronics will be mounted to the back. And that way we can actually tilt this down to have better access to everything if we need to. So I think that's going to work out pretty good. All right, so all we did was we turned this vertically and we just moved the hinge to that side. And so we'll place it about like that. And that's going to allow us to have places to stick stuff, but keep the electronics protected, and they're all going to be back behind the seat. So that'll also allow us to fold this panel down to work on stuff if we need to. So I think that is going to work out well. All right, and just as easy as that, there's our panel up and down. So we'll be able to mount the electronics the way that we want them to on this side. And I think that's what it's going to do for us. It's going to allow us to hide all the things that we need to and keep them secure and safe behind the seat. And yeah, I think it's going to work out pretty good. So let's start looking at how we want that panel to get configured. All right, so these are the basic components. We have our main power fuse that runs to the battery. We have the DC to DC converter, the 12-volt fuse box, the shunt, which allows us to measure our energy, and then a grounding block. So those are all of the basic components that are going to go on that board right there. And we just got to figure out how to mount them so that it tucks up nice and neat. All right, and so we have the shunt, which is grounded to a terminal block. This is the ground that comes from the vehicle battery. The vehicle alternator battery charging goes into the switch. The switch runs the input into the Orion. It's grounded to the bus bar. The output goes to a 60 amp fuse, which then will run up to the battery. And then this ground from the shunt runs up to the battery. We have a fuse block to connect all of our 12-volt stuff to. And then that will run also up to the battery as it's directly fused off of it. So this just controls the power coming in from the alternator to the DC to DC charger. So I think that worked out pretty good. We'll look at getting the shelf installed next because the battery is going to go up on top of the shelf. And that'll allow us to start placing some things and then figure out how our wires need to run to start connecting the 12-volt accessories and things. So progress is pretty good so far. So I think it's going to turn out pretty good. There's plenty of space everywhere. And I'll show you that once we get everything laid out a little bit better as far as getting the shelf in, because it'll come up and then we'll create a catch there to keep the panel from moving and all of that. So more to come. All right, so the panel is where it's at. We got the shelf installed. the wires for the battery. So like I said, it just goes back. This shelf, this Vector off-road shelf, which is really nice, just bolts into those brackets where it's attached directly to the factory roll bar. So that panel is going to protect all the electronics. And as we come around, you can see that everything fits nice and tidy. I put a little stop here, and this turns, so you can just turn it and then it lays down. And if we ever have to service anything, we just have to disconnect the battery. But everything else fits nice and neat in there. So easy access to the switch to turn everything on and off, access to the fuse boxes, and then this goes just like that, so you can't even tell. So that was the install of all of our systems. So all we have left is just to connect the different peripherals, which is really simple. We just connect the positive to the fuse block and the negative from the device to the ground bus, and everything should work. So I think everything fit like I thought it would, and I'm really happy with how things are sitting right now. So we'll make some final connections, test everything, and make sure it all works the way I think it should. Reconnect the battery and see if we've got power where we need it when we start the Jeep up. So the nice thing about the Victron stuff is there's an app, and I can read directly from my phone to see how the DC to DC charger is working. And then we have a battery monitor, which we're going to mount as well. I haven't figured out quite where to put that. So that was also in the Jeep in our last setup, but that just kind of gives us some real-time information. So I think that's going to be all for this video today. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys are enjoying the progress that we're making, and we'll see you next time. This is Dan from Fisher Jeep Adventures. Please subscribe, like, leave us a comment. I get right back to you as soon as you put them. So I enjoy the comments, love answering the questions, and we'll see you when we get back working on the Jeep.